What's up, Joe? What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Sports 360. I'm Jeff Fennell, and I'm here with one happy camper by the name of Rob Duran. Rob, what's up, man? How you doing?
Jeff, not only is this another edition of Sports 360, this might be the best one because baseball is back. Finally.
Baseball is back, and my man is happy.
Ooh. Yes, I am.
Yeah, I mean, the lockout is ended. Players are back in spring training. Games. What do games start? We're recording this on March 16th. I believe games start tomorrow. Is that right?
Yes, I think so. Thursday.
So
Oof.
games are about to begin. The regular season starts April 7th. So baseball is back. There's been a frenzy of activity with some big time trades, some big time signings. Yeah, you have to be just ecstatic.
Man, I'm on my phone all day these days. I'm just loving the transactions going on, loving to see where the guys are signing. And it's all happening quick because the whole lockout situation, obviously that got resolved. That's why baseball is back. And just to see the movement, the rumors, the fake rumors, the fans excited, the fans disappointed, it's everything. It's beautiful. I love it, man.
Now, we're going to get into your Yankees and talk about what they've done so far in some detail. But as you look at what has happened so far in terms of the trades and the signings, what are some of the biggest moves that you identified that have taken place so far?
I would have to say a lot of what your team has done, Jeff, the Mets. Obviously signing Scherzer, but bringing in Chris Bassett recently, the other outfielders just signed Marte and Canna, bringing those guys in. They've made a lot of moves. They're not afraid, to spend the money and bring that roster up to a talent level that we want to see a New York team at, right? So they're out there making moves. They're seeing their division and they're saying we're going for this. And and don't tell me that Steve Cohen is not looking over across the bridge, across the train at the Yankees and saying I'm trying to take over New York now. But what the Mets have done, I'll tell you, it's impressive, man. So you should be very happy.
Well, the Bassett signing or the trade for Chris Bassett, starting pitcher with the A's, one of the best pitchers in baseball.
Yeah.
That's a big one. It really fortifies their rotation. And some of the other moves you mentioned, the Mets made those signings before the lockout with Marte and with Canna and with obviously with Scherzer. But following the lockout, I mean, that was a big move for the Mets. But we've had some other, the Braves in that division have really made some headlines by trading for Matt Olson, also from the A's, to play first base, and then a day after acquiring him, signing him to a long-term deal, which at the same time means that the Braves are saying bye-bye to Freddie Freeman. And I have to tell you, coming into the offseason, I did not see that happening. I assumed that Freddie Freeman was returning to Atlanta, but he's not. And I, for one, am surprised at that.
Yeah, and I think it was just last week we were talking about how it just wouldn't look right for Freddie Freeman to wear a different uniform. And here we are, less than a week after, and he's gone. He did his whole goodbye. So obviously, we knew that book was done once they traded for Matt Olson. But that's the business side of baseball. And I think the fans of Atlanta and fans everywhere, because I think everyone had the same sentiments that they wanted to see Freddie Freeman back with Atlanta. Even me as a Yankee fan, the Yankees are technically still rumored to, well, not anymore because they signed Anthony Rizzo, but rumored to get Freddie Freeman. And even I was like, Maybe he should just sign with Atlanta. That's kind of where he belonged. But, the Braves made almost a business decision in trading for the younger Matt Olson, giving him the 8-year extension. And listen, it's not like they're losing production because Matt Olson, he's improved every year continuously. And he's a stud. He's a stud first baseman, and he's going to be there for the long term. So sad to see Freddie Freeman gone. But I think Atlanta they didn't lose much, I guess you can say, in getting Matt Olson.
Yeah, Matt Olson puts up great numbers. Staying in that division, some two big bats. Kyle Schwarber signed by the Phillies, and Nelson Cruz signed by the Nationals. To me, those seem. Well, we know Nelson Cruz is a DH, but I think Schwarber is a DH as well.
Yeah.
And I think in talking about the end to the lockout and a new collective bargaining agreement, that obviously is a change in baseball starting this year, and that is the universal DH in both leagues, National League and American League. And we see here now in Schwarber and in Nelson Cruz, two guys who are going to be playing DH for the Phillies and the Nationals, respectively. I think those are some under the radar signings that I think could have some real impact on those two clubs.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The Nelson Cruz signing was kind of looked over because it happened right before I think the Yankees made the trade where they sent Gary Sanchez and Urshela over to the Twins. But it was overlooked. But that's a good signing for the Nationals. I think having that presence with Juan Soto there, whether he hits behind him or in front of him, I would imagine he'll hit behind Juan Soto. That's great because they're two guys. They're both from the Dominican. And Nelson Cruz, let me tell you, he's in his 40s. I think he's like 41 now. He can still mash. It's not like he's lost any power at all. The dude is still a good hitter. And I think he'll help Juan Soto take that next step as being that veteran presence, almost like the big brother in the clubhouse for him. So I think, as great as Juan Soto is now, and I said this last year, I think he's maybe the best, just like straight raw talent type hitter. He might be the best in the league, and that's over every player, Mike Trout, including Mike Trout. But I think that's a great signing for the Nationals, even if they, we'll see what happens mid-season. But I think it's a great signing for them. And then the Schwarber contract with the Phillies, that's a big bat. Like you said, he can play some outfield, play some first base. I think ultimately he'll be more of a DH, like you said. But he's another big bat, big lineup presence. We saw what he did with Boston once he went over. I got to see it firsthand, unfortunately. So yeah, that's both good moves in that division. So that division itself is racking up some power.
Right, and it remains to be seen because if how it remains to be seen how good the division is going to be. Because for the 2021 season, everyone was talking about how the NL East was just going to be
Hmm.
a monster division, and it didn't turn out that way, right?
Yeah.
All the teams struggled, and the Braves finally caught a little bit of a groove toward the end of the season, and they rode that right to a World Series championship. But yeah, certainly some moves are being made. Uh, if we go over to the American League, uh, Matt Chapman going to Toronto. Again, Oakland's just getting rid of everybody, right? So their stud third baseman, Matt Chapman, another good player, didn't have the best season last year or in the 2020 shortened season, but certainly, one of the better players in the game as well when he's performing up to his standards. And now he's in Toronto. So that's another big bat, but he's also an excellent third baseman. So that's a pretty big pickup for a team that lost Marcus Simeon in free agency.
Yeah, and you wonder if surrounded by those big bats, the Vlad Guerreros and so on, the Bo Bichettes, if his offensive numbers are not going to go up. Because we saw that with Marcus Simeon too. He elevated himself offensively with that lineup inside with those guys there. So that may be the case with Chapman, and I'm sure that that's what the Blue Jays are hoping for. Let's surround this guy with some big bats, protect him in the lineup, and let's see his numbers shoot up. And then defensively, like you said, a platinum glove winner. The dude is an absolute beast defensively. So that's a great pickup for them. And I do want to point out one trade that happened with Seattle that not a lot of people are talking about too, where they get Jesse Winker and Suarez from Cincinnati,
Yeah.
which is
Yep.
another team that's kind of just trading everyone away. But Jesse Winker is another dude who's a stud hitter. The dude can just flat out rake. So that's another good pickup for a team that just missed out on the playoffs last year. And with Oakland now moving back, obviously, Houston will still be there. We'll see how the Angels shape out. I still think they're missing some pitching, but Seattle was just almost right there last year. And they're adding these bats and these veterans to the lineup. And obviously some pitching too with Robbie Ray. That's going to be a team to look out for in that division to win the division against Houston.
Right. And speaking of another team that just missed out was Toronto. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And you know, and Toronto's making moves. And so it's going to really be interesting. And and under the new agreement, right? We have expanded playoffs,
Yes.
right? So, two extra teams. So, we'll see what happens. But yeah, teams are making some real moves. And look, there are a lot of players still left. We still don't know where Correa is going. Freddie Freeman seems as if he's headed to the Los Angeles Dodgers, talking about the rich getting richer if he goes there.
I know.
But Correa is still out there. Trevor Story is still out there. We do have Michael Conforto is out there, and some other good players as well. But now let's turn to your Yankees, because your Yankees made a couple of moves. Signed Anthony Rizzo more recently, but probably I think a really solid baseball trade made by the Yankees involved the often criticized Gary Sanchez, who's now been shipped over to the Minnesota Twins. Um, what are your thoughts about that? I mean, now we got Donaldson over here. We got Isaiah kind of Falefa, who a lot of people probably don't even know about. But what do you think about that trade involving Gary Sanchez and also the re-signing of Anthony Rizzo?
Well, I'll go with Rizzo first. I think I'm not mad about the Rizzo signing. I think he was solid for us when they traded for him last season. And I think just as a clubhouse guy, and we kind of talked about it last year, he kind of fit the personality to be in New York. Like he just seemed like a New York kind of guy. So I liked the signing. They gave him the 2-year deal. I think it was great. Obviously, they weren't that intrigued or that serious about going after Freeman, who was rumored to go to them. So I'm happy with him. He's a good defender, good clubhouse guy, solid bat, and I think he helped out and he will continue to help out Joey Gallo because they spoke about how he helped Gallo get closer to the plate and maybe cut down on some strikeouts, get some more contact in the swing. So I like bringing him back. The trade. So I actually found out about the trade, which is funny because you texted me the details of it once it went down, and I was like, man, I hate the trade right off the
Mm,
bat. And I think a lot of it, and I'll be honest, it was emotional, Jeff, because Gary Sanchez has been my favorite of the baby bombers era. Gary Sanchez was my favorite one of the
mm,
baby bombers, and as much as he was criticized and stuff, I was like, no, he's gonna break out of it. He's gonna be fine. He's gonna be fine. But I think it just got to a point where I think the organization realized and he realized we just can't. We're not working out. He needed to change the scenery, and I hope he does great. I hope his defense improves in Minnesota. I hope he wins MVP, and continues to hit the ball the way he knows how to hit the ball. But from a baseball perspective, once I sat down and I was like, okay, let's see what we really got in return. Seeing Josh Donaldson at third base. Now we got some more power at third base because Gio Urshela was good for a couple of years, but he was steadily declining. And obviously, when the Yankees traded for him, he was just known for the glove, and then suddenly became a hitter. Josh Donaldson already has that in him. He's a decent defender, but power-wise, his biggest concern is injuries. If he can stay healthy, I'm happy with him at third base. Um, Kind of Falefa is another guy, like you said, not many people know about him. The dude is a stud defensively. He may not hit too much. Think it's almost like you're getting Gio Urshela right back, just a little bit younger, with more potential. I feel like so. I think offensively, he has a much higher ceiling than Gio Urshela if they can tap into that potential. But defensively, now you have somebody at short that you absolutely needed because that was the Yankees' biggest flaw last year was defense, especially up the middle. And now they have that back with kind of Falefa there at short and then hopefully with Hicks staying healthy in center field.
Look, I for all the reasons you stated, again, I thought from a baseball standpoint, it's one of those it made sense for the Yankees,
Yeah.
to, it's not splashy necessarily because Josh Donaldson has some miles on him, but he still has the ability to swing a good bat. And I just think Gary Sanchez had to move on. I
Yeah.
just think it just got to time here in New York where they needed to move on from him. And I think kind of Falefa, defensively is going to, really be a good find for the Yankees. So, I think that trade made sense. I will tell you this. I'm kind of surprised and a little disappointed that the Yankees re-signed Anthony Rizzo, and not because I think Anthony Rizzo is a good player, and I like Anthony Rizzo. I really do. I do think Anthony Rizzo's better days are behind him.
Yeah. I agree.
And I do believe that he has to hit better than he did last year. Because when the report on the player always starts with his clubhouse presence. You see, okay, I
Hmm.
get that part, but you still need to do some stuff on the field too. And he does bring all the things that you talked, and we talked about it last year when he came, that he
Yeah.
fits New York, that he's a clubhouse guy, he's a winner, he's a communicator, and all those things are good. But I do believe that the Yankees are going to need him to swing a better bat than he did last year. And I think he's capable of doing it, especially in that park, with the short right field. But he's going to have to do it, in my opinion. I think they need him to be better offensively than he was last year.
I definitely agree with that. And listen, he's gonna be replacing Luke Voigt, who's no, he's no scrub, as they say. The dude can hit, and he hits for some average. He hits for power, obviously. And we'll see what ends up happening with Luke Voigt. There's rumors that they're going to end up trading him because they re-signed Anthony Rizzo. So it's not like he's just walking in there and there was nobody at first base. Like Luke Voigt, he had his injury concerns, but the dude can hit. And, he had an attitude about him that was really good, which is actually what Donaldson brings too. It's that attitude that the Yankees lacked last year as well. So yeah, I definitely agree. Rizzo has to be in there. And not only does he have to help the Joey Gallows, but he also has to produce on his own and be the guy that they're re-signing. He has to be the offensive first baseman that they need.
Yeah, and I think he can do it, but let's see. So listen, look, like, there's a lot to be excited about, with the game being back. As we said, a lot of moves, and we just touched on a few of them. And obviously, in a couple of weeks, right before opening day, we're going to give you the floor so that you can make your predictions for the coming season. And I'm writing it all down to see just how astute you are at
Oof.
picking the winners of the various divisions, playoff teams, and all the rest of it. So we'll do that in a couple of weeks. But one last thing before we leave baseball, and that is staying with the Yankees and also with the Mets. This mandate, the COVID mandate that we've been talking about for quite some time as it relates to New York City and, Kyrie Irving, even though it's not about Kyrie Irving, but obviously, he's probably the most prominent New Yorker to date who has been affected by, the COVID workplace mandate that prevents him from playing home games in New York City because he's unvaccinated. We're going to come back to what happened with Kyrie over the weekend in a second, but sticking with baseball, the Mets and Yankees are also affected by this mandate. So that means unvaccinated Mets and Yankees players cannot play games in New York. So now it's not just about Kyrie Irving. We may soon find some very prominent Mets and Yankees players, if this rule stays in place, who won't be able to play once the season begins. And then, you throw in the rules in Canada that prohibit unvaccinated individuals, in this case players, coming into the country to play. And with the Yankees having the Toronto Blue Jays in their division, um, that could really spell trouble for both clubs. So, what are your thoughts about that? Because that is something that could really impact the season. We've seen it happen with the Nets and Kyrie. We may have the Mets and Yankees caught up in this too.
Yeah, and that'll be some big losses for both teams because you're talking about. I mean, you look at the Yankees. Obviously, they play Toronto. I'm not sure how many games are on the schedule with them this year, but 15 plus games against Toronto. You expect half of that to be in Toronto. So you're losing that plus the 81 at home. If you're a Yankee player, that's huge. That's a big chunk of the season gone for some prominent players, whether it's pitchers or hitters, doesn't matter. That's a big chunk of the season gone. And when you're in a division like the Mets and the Yankees are in, and we spoke about it, they're both powerhouse divisions. You can't afford to lose games over things like this. Injuries, fine, that's part of the game. But this can be huge, man. This can be very big, and I was surprised, to be honest, that this was in place for MLB because it's played outdoors. So it was a shock to me when I saw the news that it was going to affect the Mets and the Yankees, considering the circumstances. But yeah, man, this is going to be some tricky stuff, and we'll see what happens, obviously, before opening day rolls around if something changes. But this can have some big implications on the season in general in baseball overall.
And the rule in New York is downright silly. And
It
I
is.
think what we saw over this past weekend, where Kyrie Irving attended an NCAA basketball game on Saturday, and then was in attendance when at the Barclays Center when the Nets hosted the Knicks. And Kevin Durant spoke about it after that game, saying that it doesn't make any sense that he can come into the arena, he can sit in the stands. He didn't have on a mask, but under this rule he can't play. And we've talked about it before, how the rule does not apply to unvaccinated visiting players. When you look at all of this together, him being Kyrie able to come into the arena as a spectator, sitting side, at center court, he's able to do that, and unvaccinated visiting players are able to actually play. The New York rule makes no sense. And
It makes
you have to believe that the Mets, Yankees, and the Nets are engaged right now in heavy duty lobbying to get this rule changed.
Yeah, it makes absolutely no sense because, like you said, the guy's sitting at courtside watching his team play at home, but he can't go out there and play. Yet, like you said, there could be, X amount of visiting players, unvaccinated, that are playing on his home court. And it's like, the fans are there to see Kyrie Irving play in Brooklyn. They're not there to see, whoever. visiting player. So it doesn't make any sense. It never did make sense, honestly. And I'm not sure. And I'm hoping. I really am hoping that this changes, not just before opening day, but also to allow Kyrie to play in the playoffs at home. Because for me, it's one thing. The Toronto stuff, I don't mind it because that is a different country. So I don't have an issue with them having their own policy for unvaccinated players. That is what it is. It's a whole different country. But the situation in New York, it's mind-boggling. It just there's no I don't even know what other words to say. It just doesn't make sense. And I think they should just completely get rid of that, whatever it is, that mandate or that those guides, whatever it is, man. They just gotta get rid of it.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. My prediction is by opening day, April 7th, the rule will be changed, and that would open the door for Kyrie to play in the postseason at the Barclays Center. And I do believe we're going to see him playing games again because I just again it the optics are so bad. And I don't know if what we saw over the weekend was orchestrated because not only did Kyrie sit courtside at the Knicks Nets game, but then he also went into the locker room, which he wasn't allowed to do under the rule. And the Nets were fined $50,000. And that started to get me thinking as to whether the Nets wanted this all to happen, that they wanted him to be there or didn't mind him being there on Saturday and the fact that he's there on Sunday and then he goes into the locker room because I think all of this together had the effect of showing that this rule really doesn't make sense. Um
Yeah.
and
And listen,
it's
even if
interesting
he
though
didn't, no, go ahead.
that Eric Adams, did you see Eric Adams when they said that, what do you think about Kyrie? He said, "Oh, he can play tomorrow. Get vaccinated."
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh
that's a nice
man.
little quote. That's a nice little quote, but let's see what
Yeah.
happens because I think a lot of pressure is going to be put on to change a rule that I think, as we've been saying, it just doesn't work and it needs to be scrapped.
It does. And even if Kyrie hadn't gone into the locker room after the game ended, he's on the court anyway, shaking hands with everyone and doing all that. So it's yeah, just
Right.
Eric Adams, get it out of there.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of Kyrie, are you kidding me, man? I mean, his last 2 games, right? He throws up a 50 piece against the Charlotte Hornets, and then last night, March 15th, 60 against the Orlando Magic. This
41 at
guy
half.
is 41 at the half, right? He's
Wow.
unbelievable. As an offensive player, he is unbelievable. Um, and so he's just doing some great things. Kevin Durant scored 53 against the Knicks on Sunday, and Kyrie comes back and scores 60 against the Magic in their next game.
Yep.
And we talked about this the last time. Some of the phenomenal performances, whether it was Tatum or LeBron, who put up another 50-point game. Carl Anthony Towns putting up 60 points. We've really seen again the individual, outbursts by NBA players just continues, man. Um, I mean, it's good to see. It really is.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? When as these stats are piling up, 16-point games, 15-point games, all I hear in my head is you saying last week, nobody plays defense. And I just laugh to myself at the end of every night seeing all these guys dropping 50 and 60, thinking, man, they really don't play any defense. Jeff was not messing around.
Come
So
on, man. Did you see the score when Cat scored his 60 points? Because
it was
Minnesota
crazy.
beat the Spurs, and I think the score was like 139 to 131 or something like it was
Yeah.
something straight out of the old ABA. I mean,
Yeah.
those are the scores you saw with the red, white, and blue ball, you know? And so it's really yeah, nobody's playing defense these days.
Nobody, man. Yeah, that game ended 149 to 139. Wow.
Oh, that's what the score was, 1 for 1. Look at that. I cheated Minnesota out of 10 points. 149 to 139. Come
That's
on,
insanity.
man. And I believe that was a regulation game. I don't think it went into overtime.
No, no overtime.
Come on.
Just straight 4 quarters.
Yep. Yep. But again, the offensive skill of today's NBA players is really off the charts. But
It is.
also too, the rules allow for it, right? I mean, gone are the days of hand checking, gone are the days of hard fouls. You know what I mean? Those days are just simply gone. And now, Carl Anthony Towns won the darn 3-point shooting contest at the All-Star game, right? I mean, he's a
Yeah.
center and he won a 3-point shooting contest. So, you have centers who are shooting threes regularly. The floor is open and it's spread and you can't touch guys and right? So, it's prime for scoring, but quite frankly, isn't that what we want to see? And isn't that the problem in baseball, right? That you don't see
Mm,
enough action, you don't see enough scoring, you don't see enough, you want to see base hits, you want to see stolen bases, you want to see balls hitting the gap, right? You just don't want to see
yeah.
home runs. And baseball has turned into a game of walks and home runs and strikeouts, of course. But, the bottom line is if seeing guys put the ball in the hoop, yeah, teams aren't playing defense, but seeing the ball go through the hoop the way it's going through the hoop now, yeah, I mean, that's what you wanna see. You wanna see an exciting game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned that too, because for the All Star weekend, so many people are looking forward to the 3 point contest now as opposed to the slam dunk
Yeah,
contest.
yep.
And it's like I'm glued to the 3 point contest, just seeing these guys shoot the ball. It's amazing to me, and I love seeing it. And that's what the NBA is about, man. And you can see it even translate into pickup basketball. Everybody's shooting threes now. When back in the day, it was about driving the ball down and all that stuff. Now it's all about the three.
Yeah, it really is. So, look, the game is different now. This is not about, no Jordan rules, where they were, the Pistons were knocking him all over the court and stuff like that. You
Yeah.
couldn't treat a player like that now.
No.
Can you imagine if LeBron James got treated like that?
Oof. Somebody's gonna get suspended for the year.
Right. So the game is different and it's, offensively, it's I like it. And I know some people who do not like the NBA game. They just simply don't like it. But, for me, I think the players are very, very talented. And when you have good teams that are playing and they have the ball movement, they have good schemes and things like that, it's fun to watch. It really is. It's fun to watch. Um Speaking of fun to watch, I'm having fun watching this. I don't even know what you call it, Rob, but Tom Brady, who now is back, right? So, first of all, when he retired, it was like he retired, and it was like, no, he didn't tell Tampa he retired, and then he retires, right? And he gets all his flowers and everything else, and people are saying, and now he's back. His retirement lasted 6 weeks. Um, Look, I will go on record to say it plainly. I'm tired of Tom Brady. I think he needs to go home. What are your thoughts? Are you glad he's back?
I've been saying Tom Brady needs to go for about 10 to 15 years now, man.
I forgot
He
you're a Jets.
terrorized.
I
He
forgot.
terrorized. He terrorized my Jets for way too long. I was glad when he left the Patriots. I don't mind Tom Brady too much at Tampa. He doesn't bother me too much there. He's actually funny now. He has a
Yeah.
personality.
Yes.
But listen, man, he retired. That, like you said, everyone gave him his flowers. We all posted up about him. All talked about him for weeks about how great he was. He's the GOAT. And then he pulled a Brett Favre and came
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't like when players do that. It's just it kind of rubs me the wrong way because it's like, man, what more do you have to accomplish? You got your 7 rings. You've done it with 2 teams. Like, what's left? You brought your team back from the brink of elimination to almost win, and you probably would have won the Super Bowl if you made it that far this year. What more do you have to prove? What more do you have to do for your legacy? Now you're just messing around with us at this point.
Yeah, and look, I'm just hoping, it's not proven that he stayed one season too long. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I just don't want to see him out there. At some point, he's going to lose it. I'm saying, lose the ability to perform at his customary high level.
yeah,
And that would be a shame if that's what people see, because you never saw it. And so why would you want to risk that happening? And that's what is the last thing that's etched in people's minds. Because as you said, even though they lost to the Rams in the playoffs this year, it was a remarkable comeback in the fourth quarter where they tied the game. And it was
yeah,
vintage Brady and a Brady led team not giving up. Yeah, they fell short, but it was like, man, is this guy amazing or what? Right. So it was the same thing. It was in line with his history and his performance over his career. But if we get to the point where Tom Brady is throwing interceptions and getting sacked and the team isn't as good, and why?
yeah.
Why?
It's
I'm
almost
not
like when,
wishing it on him, but I don't even know why he would risk that.
yeah, it's almost like with Peyton Manning. Peyton
Yeah.
Manning, I think it was his last year. He couldn't even throw the ball. It was little floaters going out of there, and he got benched. He got hurt and then benched, and then he came back for the playoffs for that run. But that was not good, man. It was not good to see Peyton Manning, Peyton freaking Manning, play that way. And I hope that doesn't happen with Brady. You want to see, like you said, the last memory I have of Brady is him coming back against the Rams and almost doing it to the point where I was rooting for Brady to win that game. And that does not happen with me. So to see him come back, you hope he stays injury free. You hope that they can protect him with the O line, and they've lost some pieces on the O line, so that'll be big. I know he got his center back, which, by the way, I take everything good I said back about Brady because that center was supposed to sign with the New York Jets, and Brady coming back, the Buccaneers signed him back. He went back because of that. Took less money and everything, but he was destined to go to the Jets. So I don't like Tom Brady again, man. Forget it. Forget what I said.
Well, we'll see, but he's back, and now it seems like Gronk is talking about, joining him once again. So, the Tom Brady saga continues. Russell Wilson, though, another quarterback, making news, traded from Seattle to Denver. What do you think about that?
I think that's a situation with Wilson and Seattle that kind of had to end already. I think the team and the quarterback, they've been rumors for years now, a couple of years now, of are they going to trade him? Are they going to get rid of him? What's going to happen? I think it's a good move. Denver has a very solid team. They have some young pieces who are good. They have some veterans who are really good. Obviously, they made some decent signings this offseason so far. And I think bringing in an established quarterback, and I don't think he's the greatest quarterback, but he's a really, really good quarterback. And having him there, bringing his leadership, I think that's only going to elevate that team. And they're going to be a team that's going to make a push for the playoffs. And I think he's going to have a great year with Denver.
I do too. I think Russell Wilson is a winner.
He is.
He's just a winning player. And yeah, the time in Seattle had come to an end. And Denver did not have a quarterback. Good defense. They actually picked up my man Randy Gregory from the Cowboys, who agreed to a deal and then didn't like contract language in the Cowboys contract and said, "I'm going to Denver." So he's out there, but Denver, I think, is an up and coming team. But having said that, they're still out there with the Raiders and with the Chiefs and with the Chargers. So it's not as if it's going to be some walk in the park out there. It's going to
Definitely
be
not.
tough. But, you know, I think Denver is definitely a better team now with Russell Wilson as their quarterback. So yeah, I mean that to me is going to be one of the biggest stories of the NFL season with Russell Wilson now in Denver. So, yeah, some quarterbacks on the move. And of course, Aaron Rodgers is back in Green Bay. Talking about a drama queen,
Oh
Aaron
my goodness.
Rodgers. I like Aaron Rodgers, but, he does just have one Super Bowl. I mean, we talk about Aaron Rodgers as if he's Tom Brady Jr., and he's not.
Yeah, this is. I think he needs to win it this year. Listen, the path in the NFC with Wilson now gone, we don't know what's going to happen with New Orleans. The path in the NFC is much easier than the AFC. He has Tom Brady there. Obviously, he's back, and I'm sure that factored into Brady coming back. That the NFC has weakened. Aaron Rodgers needs to get it done this year. I'm putting him on notice. This year, he has to get it done.
Yeah, and if he doesn't, I mean, I think he's already, there's a lot of whispers about him not being able to win the big games and how
Yes.
many NFC championships he's lost and divisional round games and so forth. And if he doesn't if he does if he doesn't win this year, if he doesn't, you know, go to a Super Bowl, he needs to win it, but he at least needs to get there. I think it's going to continue. I think the whispers are going to get louder, and people are going to say, "Okay, yeah, great, individual seasons, MVPs, and all the rest of it." But when you look back on it, he did a lot of regular season winning and not that much in the postseason. So,
Yep.
but he's back at some huge dollars with the Green Bay Packers. A couple of things before we get on up out of here. Ben Simmons still has not played for the Brooklyn Nets, and they're now saying he has some spine irritation, and they're
Mm-hmm.
hoping that he'll be ready to play for the playoffs. I
We'll
don't see
see,
it.
man.
I don't see it. He hasn't played in over a year.
Yep.
I just don't see it. And I would like to have seen him get out there, get some reps with Kyrie, get some reps with KD, and also just get out there and play because what happens in the next big spot when Ben Simmons comes up short? You know what I mean? Either because he misses a shot, misses a free throw, makes a bad decision, right? What does he do? Right? Does it like become deja vu for him
Yeah.
all over again, as Yogi Berra used to say, right? Does that happen for him? I think he needs to get out there and play so that he can just get things out of his system. But look, if he's not mentally, we talked before, if he's not mentally ready to play, then don't play. And if his body, if he has a spine irritation, he can't play. Okay, he can't play. But look, there's not that many regular season games left, and if he doesn't play in the regular season, I don't know how he makes his debut in the cauldron of the postseason.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. If he doesn't play any regular season games, I'd find it very hard. Unless it's I don't even know. Unless it's like the Nets are up in a series and they haven't lost a game and you want to throw him in there in garbage time for the playoffs, maybe that, but I highly doubt it. If he doesn't get any regular season games in, You assume he's not really practicing with the team, like getting, playing the 5-on-5s and stuff like that. So I don't know, man. I don't see him playing in this season.
No, I don't either. Um, Last thing, and this is just, to keep it front of mind, and to not let it go, and that is Brittney Griner, still in custody in a Russian jail somewhere. Um, don't know, what's going on there. Obviously, a lot of efforts are being made diplomatically to get her released and to get her back home. But WNBA star Brittney Griner remains in Russia in jail on drug charges. And, there have been experts uh, who have dealt with these types of issues, with American citizens being detained in other countries, including Russia. And they say they just don't like some of the things that they've seen, including like the mugshot and the film footage at the airport and so forth. And it looks as if, this is a situation where it's fabricated and trumped up, and, she's being used as a pawn. And so it's a very, very troubling situation, Rob. And we just want to continue to keep it out there, because, um, you know, it's 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 something that needs to change, right? She needs to be home. And, at some point, there may become a groundswell from various sectors of the public in this regard. Right now it's not, but until she's back, man, we just want to keep it front of mind that she is still in custody.
Absolutely. And it's like you said, it's good that we continue to mention it. People continue out there in social media mentioning it and keeping it front and center because it's scary stuff. Whatever she's going through is terrifying, and we just hope that she can get home soon, and the U.S. does whatever is necessary to get her home ASAP. So, yeah, everyone continue posting it, talking about it. Don't let it, disappear.
That's right. That's right. And we're going to keep our eye on it until she's back. Um, but okay, brother, this is that's it for us for this edition. We'll be back next week. Sure, there will be more baseball signings. There'll be some other developments, perhaps, on the New York City mandate front, and we'll see what's going on with basketball as it continues to make its way toward the playoffs. Then the other thing too that we didn't talk about, but we can, certainly touch on it next week, is March Madness, which is kicking off. Both the NCAA men's and NCAA women's college basketball tournaments are underway. And so there's a lot of exciting basketball, both college and pro, ahead of us. And then, of course, for you, MLB baseball, right? So
Yeah.
a lot is certainly going on. So we're gonna come back next week, Rob, and we'll catch up on everything, the latest signings, the latest this, the latest that. But we'll be right in the thick of it, and look forward to doing that again next week with you.
Baseball is back, baby.
Yes, it is, and we'll be back next week with another edition of Sports 360.